PSU different from the way they're treating NASA. And that is their partners, their apartheid. And so we need a broad opposition, a broad collective opposition. And the one thing that we all agree on is that this government is a runaway train that needs to be stopped. And that's all you need in an opposition movement. We will differ in terms of policies. We will differ in terms of emphasis. But the one thing that we all should be agreed on after 3 years and more of the PPQ is that we have a government that is authoritarian to the bone, that is unaccountable to everybody, including its own supporters, and a government that is prepared to use race as a means of setting up a dictatorship. I don't know if Jackie O's a racist. I'm not in his head. I don't know if Irfan Ali's a racist. I'm not in his head. And I'm not prepared to go into the heads and plan things or try to see things. What I do know is that they're presiding over a government that is practicing open racial discrimination. And all people need to stand up against that. Race is real. Race may be biologically unreal, but it's socially and politically real. Race determines whether you get 6.5% or you get 20.5% raise in your salary. Race determines whether you get a house lot or you don't get a house lot. Race determines whether you get $250,000 cash grant or you get $50,000 cash grant. Race determines where the bridge across the Demerara River starts and ends. Sisters and brothers, race is real, not because I say so, but because it's a real phenomenon. And this nonsense about rigged elections, they're talking about what Hamilton Green said, and I didn't even want to mention it because it's so nonsensical. So long as you have two ethnic groups, neither of them is a majority, but you have a winner-take-all system, then both of them will want to get a majority. And if you can't get the majority from the other race, because the other race don't want you, then you are going to rig. And rigging, therefore, is an equal opportunity beast in Guyana. I hear people say, well, we don't have a majority race anymore, so racism will go. No, because you don't have a majority race, that race that is no longer majority, you have to find ways to get a majority to rule. And they're not successful in buying enough votes from the other side. So they have to rig. Rigging is now a staple in Guyana. The 2020 elections show that. It showed that rigging does not have any little corner anymore. In the old days, the Black Party resorted to rigging because they did not have a majority. Today, the Indian Party is resorting to rigging because it does not have a majority. That is the logic, brothers and sisters. That is the logic. Rigging does not have a single home in Guyana. There is a temptation to rig because the system says that the majority must govern. And if you don't have a racial majority, you have to manufacture a racial majority. And so therefore the winner-take-all system has to go in order to stop rigging. You show Burnham rig, Burnham rig, Burnham rig, and you satisfy yourself. But there's a whole new generation who don't know nothing about Burnham rigging. What they know is about PPP rigging. What they know is about the 48 ballot boxes with no statutory document. What they know is about the 4,000 people who voted in the last election but were not in the country. And so therefore rigging now does not have a single face. It does not have an Indian face or an African face. It has a Guyanese face. And this government is rigging not only election, it's rigging the economy. It's rigging the economy in favor of one race and one party and one group. It's rigging the finances of this country. This government is the biggest rigger. And so don't get me into this whole thing about rigging is a PNC thing. PNC rigged back in the days, dusted and is gone. And the reason that the PNC rigged back then is the reason the PPP is rigging today. Because they want to manufacture a majority that they don't have anymore. Put that in our pipes and smoke it. The law said you have to have a majority. And if you can't get it by fair means, you're going to get it by foul means. If the PPP don't want to be accused of rigging, free up the damn voters list. Get those 200,000 people off the list. Why are you looking at the other side? And the other side is saying, we want the people off the list. And you are saying the people must remain there. And you're calling the other side rigger. You are rigging the damn list. The PPP is rigging the electoral list. At least the PNC is on record as saying we want to get rid of that rigged list. But yet you're watching the PNC and want to call them riggers. The truth must be told. And I think people like myself have the moral responsibility to tell the truth. You know why? Because when the other side rigged, we came out on them and paid the price with our liberty and our lives. And by God, this side is rigging. Rigging every day. And you what? Oh yes, good evening and welcome to Politics 101 on a Wednesday evening. Just recapping, that was how we ended our that's how we ended our Monday program. Some comments there from me on rigging and related activities. I'm going to continue on that issue because I'm not finished yet with it. As we come on air tonight, we have the news. We went off air last night and we got the news that the CEO of the Ministry of Education had issued a memorandum advising teachers that they are collecting data and they're going to use that data to deduct monies from their salaries. That is teachers who have gone on strike. And of course, the court last week said that the government cannot do that. The government cannot do that. The court, Justice Kissoon, prohibited the government from doing that. Yet, the Ministry of Education, through its CEO, sent out that memorandum yesterday. Well, it appears as though things are happening in our country. And the judge, as we understand it, called in the CEO of the ministry and told him in uncertain terms, what you're doing is a violation of the court order. Good evening and welcome to Politics 101. If you're joining us from inside of Guyana, welcome. If you're joining us from outside of Guyana, welcome to Politics 101. We're going to be talking about the new developments in the teacher strike, of course. Again, we see the government disrespecting the courts, disrespecting the courts, disrespecting the judge. Thank God, Judge Kissoon has stood up. We are saying over and over again, this is a full-fledged dictatorship that is prepared to disrespect the institutions of this country. They are prepared to disrespect the institutions of this country. I think our courts made some serious mistakes during the 2020 election. I think the court should have not become overly involved in the 2020 election. I don't think the court should have become overly involved, but they became involved. Lots of us were angry at them. But the people who are sitting on the court have to understand the nature of the country that they're living in. The PPP is prepared to disrespect and destroy the courts. They're prepared to disrespect all the institutions. I have never seen a dictatorship of this nature in Guyana. The court ruled in the nurses' instance, in the instance of the nurses' strike. Look, you can't take away people money when they're on strike. Despite that, despite the ruling of that court, they still attempt to take out the money from these teachers' paycheck. The court stopped them from doing it. They're still sending memorandum to the teachers. They do not respect the courts. Sisters and brothers, this is not about us trying to excite you. This is about being real. What this teacher strike is doing, among other things, is that it is exposing this government for what it always was and what it will always be. You know, I hear my comrades who are calling for more blood, more boots on the ground. I am with that, but I'm old enough to know that that's not how struggle works. I'm old enough to know that once something is in motion, it takes on a life of its own. And the very fact of the teachers, how many of them are out there, it means they've opened the government to a kind of scrutiny that it was not open to in a practical way in the last 3 years. And so while I would like to have more boots on the ground, that's not my business now. My business is that the boots on the ground are enough for now, and it's stampeding the government, and it's putting it in a tailspin. You don't always measure struggle by how many people are responding to your side. You measure struggle also by how the other side is responding to you. We don't have them in a chokehold yet, but we get in there. Our friends who are going to stop by tonight, one of them is already here. Let me bring him in. Rickford, good evening.
Good evening, Doc. How are you?
I'm fine, thanks. I've
good evening, dear listeners.
Twice in 3 days. When it rains, it pours. As you all would say there in New York, when it snows, it snows.
It's always a pleasure to be with you, Doc.
Yes. Have you been following what's been happening in the courts today?
I have.
Tell us what happened today.
Well, the Justice Sidel Kissoon ruled last week. Issued the conservatory orders, which we discussed at the last program, that the status quo must be maintained, meaning the teachers must continue to receive their pay, and the government must cease and desist from its attempt to stop the deduction of the union dues by the Ministry of Finance. And that's an attack on the finance of the union, because the government realizes if it continues to receive finance, it'll be able to finance the strike. But in defiance of the court, in open demonstrated contempt of the court, this man, Saddam Hussein, is trying to live up to the name. And he is the chief education officer of the Ministry of Education. He issued a memorandum to the teachers, to education officials all across the country today that said that the education officials must continue to report to the ministry the names of all teachers who are on strike. They're calling it did not show up for work and were absent from the classroom without permission, even though they know this is a strike. And then he went on to say something that was very disturbing to me. In the last paragraph, he says this: to be clear, the order made by Justice Kissoon, the orders made by Justice Kissoon are temporary. The government will not pay teachers for the days they did not work. We are advised that the final order from the court is expected to make this, to be made accordingly, and consequently, the information collected above will be utilized to determine teachers' salaries. And let me say this, he has repeated here exactly what the Attorney General said. Just after this ruling, the Attorney General went on NCN and gave an interview that was openly contemptuous of the judge. He was arguing what the law is and what the judge can do. And this is the language he used. So this came directly, as far as I'm concerned, from a position taken by the Attorney General. And he said, he is instructing the court. Listen to Saddam Hussein. He said, this is the Justice Kissoon order was temporary. It is expected that his final order will state what he is saying. I mean, I'm surprised the judge didn't jail him.
That is coercing. That is
Yeah.
coercing. Yeah, that's
it is open contempt of the judge. The judge said in his conservatory orders, the status quo must remain. The teachers must get their salary and the government cannot stop their deductions. And he, the chief education officer, is expressing the government's position. But the paragraph before that, you are required to continue collecting the data on a daily and submit. Let me turn my phone the other way. Yeah, you're required to continue collecting the data daily and submit in your respective region, and copy of the submission must be sent to the Deputy Chief Education Officer admin. The Ministry of Education has received from each of the 11 district teachers who were absent from the substantive school without prior permission or leave or whatever it is. And then he went on to say, collect this thing. But this last paragraph is what is bothering me.
Yeah, so,
I mean, I have never seen anything
but what
like
the judge
that.
did today? What did the judge do today?
So today, the judge saw this memo and summoned him to appear before him.
Thank you.
When he appeared before the judge told him that this letter that he sent out there, put the administration of justice in disrepute. He apologized to the judge. He told the judge he undertook to rescind this memo. He partially did, and he apologized. Now, what I like about the judge seized possession of this issue. It is no longer a matter of stopping them from doing stuff to the teachers. The judge now took control of this entire strike matter, and the judge ordered them to appoint senior counsels for mediation under his supervision. So now both sides will agree to 2 senior counsels, and those attorneys will negotiate on behalf of the ministry, on behalf of the teachers, come up with a resolution, report it back to the judge, and the judge is going to probably make that his order. So the judge realized that this government now is completely in contempt of the rule of law, contemptuous of the teachers, and now was contemptuous of the court. And the judge now, they opened the door for the judge to now take full control of this matter and preside over its resolution.
Rickford Burke here. We're talking about some important developments today in Guyana around the teachers' strike. As you would have heard, that the government, in defiance of the court order, sent out a memorandum yesterday instructing head teachers to continue to make preparations for taking monies out of teachers' salaries. And today, something that we have not seen, certainly I have not seen in my time, today we see the court standing out as an equal branch of government. Let me make that clear. We're getting into civics here. Lincoln Lewis has joined us. Let me bring him in. Lincoln, good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
And how are you?
I am fine. Yeah. Let me say this, and then I'll bring you in to respond, Lincoln. We have 3 co-equal branches of government: the executive branch, the legislative branch, and the judicial branch. They are co-equal branches of government. But the judicial branch has a role that the other 2 branches doesn't have. And that it has a role as the umpire, as the mediator. Whenever there is a conflict between the other 2 branches of government, the legislature and the executive, the judicial branch steps in. Whenever there is a conflict among institutions in the country, the judicial branch steps in. Whenever there is a conflict between the people and their government, the judicial branch steps in. And the judicial branch is doing so under a convention that is called judicial review. And that is the power of the court, the power of the judicial branch to review the actions of the other 2 branches. And not often have we seen in our Guyana the court standing up in a real way and discharging this function of review, judicial review. And we have had our problems with the court. I think the court got too overly involved in the 2020 election. That's my view. Others don't agree with it, but I think the court got overly involved. And they determined the outcome of an election in the wrong way. However, I'm coming to you, Rickford. However, the court is an important pillar of our country. If we are going to move towards a democracy, the court will have to play a very important role. And it's good to see the judge standing up today, calling in that man and saying, you are not going to disrespect this court. But more than that, saying, you all don't want to mediate outside of the court, meaning the chief labor officer and the minister of labor are supposed to engage in mediation. They're not. And the court said, in this matter before me, we are going to move to mediation. Let me bring in Lincoln first, and then I'll come back to you, Rickford. Lincoln, what do you make of the developments today? You're old enough, as old as I am, and I think maybe you get a couple years more than me, as they would say. So you would have seen a little bit more than me. Is this unprecedented or what?
Yes, I can't remember an issue of this nature where a judge, where the court say very clear to the parties, or said to the government primarily, or the employer, you will have to go to mediation. And I'm going to be posting that and give the direction of what ought to happen. I believe the first time. And I believe it's because I want to commend the court for standing up to be to interpret the law and to make the type of decisions to protect those who are being exploited by the strong and mighty in this society, and in this specific case, the government. It take a judge with some degree of testicular fortitude to really stand up and do what he did. Right?
You won't get me to come from Politics 101. So you can go ahead. Politics 101 is me and you and Rick Forting. So I don't think you can get.
I look doing this. It reminds me of a case with handled by Justice Gino Prasad. He was, they coursed him out after. So the judge may end up getting some coursing. But let me tell you what. It is not surprising what happened, and the judge had to call the chief education officer and upbraid him for what he did. The PPP don't respect laws, but they're good to run around and lie and lie and lie and lie. You know, that's the problem that we have. We have a group of people who don't have respect for laws. They don't have respect for the citizens of the country. And we are in for a strong resistance to implement what the judge may have ordered. You know, if you go back, you will understand them. 1999, the Armstrong Award. Many of those things are not yet honored by the government, by the PPP. That's how they behave. They will not want to honor anything. The day last week, Thursday, when the order was made, I had to remind some people, some of my colleagues, that true to form, the PPP will not want to honor them. They will not want to. That's how they stay. They will not stop. They will not stop transgressing rights and violating laws.
Violating laws. But we have the court standing up. Rick Ford, let me bring you back in because you were itching to come in.
Yeah, and I'm happy Lincoln joined us. Good afternoon, Lincoln. Let me say 3 things. This reminds me of, we had a precedent for this. This reminds me of when I was in high school in Guyana. There was a case where I think Joy, I don't remember her name. Is it Joy? Joy Reid or something? Not Joy Reid, but it's a realtor who allegedly coveted a property from a client, and the matter was going on before Justice James Patterson, and she refused to go to court, and then she checked herself into the hospital, and the judge ordered the hospital to bring her on the bed into the court. I don't know if Lincoln will remember that. She was a realtor. She had a big realtor in real estate office in Guyana, and Justice Patterson ordered her to come to court in the bed. So they have to bring her like that. So this reminds me of that. But the judge was right. And let me say this. It is shocking. I want to remind people what the judge ruled, that the teachers must continue to be paid and the government must not attempt to seize the deduction of their union dues. In essence, this is what the chief education officer said. The government of Guyana will not pay teachers for days they did not work. Directly challenging the judge. That's why the judge had to do that. The judge had to protect the integrity of the judiciary today, and that's what he did, and by dragging him before him. Now, and let me tell you why I believe the judge ordered them to go to mediation. Under the laws of Guyana, whenever there's an industrial conflict, the Ministry of Labor, through the Chief Labor Officer, is required to trigger or invoke conciliation laws. That's the government, right? In this case, the government is in dispute with the teachers, and the government is refusing to trigger that law. It is a requirement. It is not by discretion of the minister. It's a requirement. And the fact that they did not do that is what, to me, forced the judge to order them into mediation. Now, I think coming out of this, we as a society must call for the removal of this authority from the Ministry of Labor to an independent body, maybe Industrial Relations Board, whatever you call it. It cannot be that the government has responsibility for these matters anymore, because they're right now are in open defiance of the law, and the citizens have lost trust in the government to carry out the functions of the law as inscribed in the Constitution.
Mark Benschop was join us. I just want you to know that Dr. Henry Jeffrey raised that point on the weekend. You should read his column in which he's saying that in the constitutional reform process that is coming up, it is very clear that this government has shown that it can violate the laws as they are on the books with some impunity. And that what we need to do is to strengthen in our constitution protection for our workers.
Yes, I agree. I didn't see the article, but he's on point.
I'm saying that I'm tiptoeing on it because I have Lincoln Lewis here who belongs to a school of thought who says that, well, you know, we have constitution, but we have bad people. And so therefore we shouldn't think, but as I think it was Nigel Hughes who said, we want constitutional reform precisely because of those bad people. Constitutional reform is not for good people. It's really for bad people, right? And we have seen over 6 years in Guyana that we have more bad people than good people in government, and we shouldn't wait any longer to see more bad people. We have to have constitutional provision to really stop them. Lincoln, I'm going to bring you back in, but let me bring Mark in first. Mark, go right ahead. Mark, what do you make of the developments today?
Yes, thanks, Dr. Hines, and hi to all of your listeners. Hi to Lincoln Lewis and
Rickford Burke.
Rickford Burke. You think it's not easy living in a basement. Sorry about that.
You just forget names and stuff.
The latest development, it's bad in a sense, good and bad. Good that the judge was able to discipline that individual, call him into the courtroom, and ask for an explanation, and even said that he's guilty of disrespecting the court. On top of that, this guy left the courtroom and issued a letter not so long after, defying the judge's order. He went right back into saying to his officers that they must take notes of all teachers who are absent during this strike. That again is a violation of what transpired in the court today. So I suspect that he may have to reappear in front of the judge. And this next appearance, the judge should basically discipline him by not only charging him with contempt, but find him guilty of contempt once again and sentence him to maybe 1 month or maybe 2 weeks in prison. He has got to go. He has got to be penalized, because these folks in office today, they believe that they are above the law. They believe that they can do anything at any time. It doesn't matter. And it has got to stop. That's just my opening remarks. It has got to stop.
Lincoln, come back in. You were wanting to, I think, respond to something that I said.
Yeah, David, let me say to you, my position has always been that we have not had the laws that ought to flow from the Constitution. We have a Constitution, so many hundred paragraphs, articles, but we don't have the concomitant laws to really deal with the issues, right? And I believe that while we are talking about constitutional reform, we still have to pursue the issue about laws. It made it very in the Constitution. There is what you call there's a clause, I can't remember the section of it, but it says that the only that a member of parliament can carry a bill. The opposition, any member of parliament can carry a bill. Opposition also, unless that bill do not involve financial implication, right? The opposition can carry a bill. So a number of these things, we can now start to look at developing laws. If we have draftsmen who can help us, we can put those laws in place. Because I'll give you one. A couple weeks ago, since the strike started, what's his name said, the Guyana Teachers Union, for how many years did not submit their books to the Auditor General to be audited. Let me point out to you, we have decided we're not going to send any book to the Auditor General because 223 of the Constitution said the Auditor General shall audit the books of the state. So whatever you have outside of that is in conflict with the Constitution. And we have taken a position, we're not going to conform to it. In some years ago, when they had wanted to take away Critchlow subvention, you know what they did? Roger Lunchan wrote Anand Gulsaran and tell him to audit the books of Critchlow. And Gulsaran, in a letter written to him, to Lunchan, he said to Lunchan in that letter that that is not his authority. You don't have the authority. The authority under 223 is for him to deal with the books of the state. These are things that we know. You understand? Since then, we say we're not sending nothing to them. Right? I raise that for you to understand that there are issues of that nature that we need to get the laws that are in consonant with the Constitution. The law says, the Constitution says that any worker is free to join a trade union, but the trade union recognition laws of this country that instituted in 1997 by the Guyana government, by the government of Guyana, the PPP government. You know what it says? That if you're working at the prison as a prison warder, or you're working at what the place is, you're working at the fire service, all these people were represented by the PSU in the past. You know what they said? The law says that they can't be members of the union. They take them out. Okay? In New York and the metropolitan state, you have police who join trade unions. In Guyana, the Constitution, the laws that they put in place deny these policemen from being a member of a trade union. So I'm saying to you, it is not merely the Constitution, but it is the laws that are there in place that we have to challenge. And we got right laws that are progressive enough. That was my challenge.
We have Roysdale Ford. Lincoln, there's a lot of chatter behind you there. If you can ask them to tone it down a little, we'll be very grateful. If you can ask your folks there to tone down a little, we'll be very grateful. Last night we had Roysdale Ford on, and he made a very important point that I want you guys to respond to. The concept of no work, no pay. Roysdale says, look, if a worker wake up a morning and decide I want to go up in the car and drink beer rather than go to work, that worker is not entitled, obviously is not entitled to pay because they take the time off to go and drink. Or you take the time off to go and hang out with your friends. But if you take the time off because you're sick, right, you're entitled to pay. I'm pushing that in. What Roysdale said is that if workers are striking for better conditions of work, the principle of no work, no pay doesn't kick in. So the no work, no pay concept doesn't kick in when you're sick. It doesn't kick in when you are taking action to improve your circumstances. I would like to get your reaction to that because I thought it was the clearest explanation from a legal standpoint that I have heard to date on this concept of no work, no pay. Rickford, then Mark, and then I'll come back to Lincoln.
Well, he's correct because it flows from the whole concept of collective bargaining. And if you are in a collective bargaining agreement, then that agreement governs the way the relationship between the employee and the worker. For instance, you get vacation that is paid, you get sick leave that is paid. The worker is actually working when they're on strike. They're not staying home, they're working. What they are doing is working in a different environment, calling on you to treat them better. That's what it is. And that's why I'm saying that the whole relationship with the employer and the employee and the mediator has to come out from the umbrella of the government. It has to be. The government is biased. You cannot have the government instruct the Ministry of Labor, one of its arms, to defy the law. It's incomprehensible. And that's why Justice Kissoon was right to instruct them to go to mediation. And so this whole matter is now before him. He has jurisdiction of the strike. It's no longer going to be the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Labor. No, it's going to be the mediators reporting to the judge. And I'm pretty sure at the end of the day, once they come to some agreement, that is going to become the order of the court. Right. And so I'm happy for that. And maybe that's a way now to go around the Ministry of Labor. Strict to the government, the wise of the population.
Let's don't get too far ahead of ourselves. I'm bringing in Mark, but let me stick my little piece here in. Mm-hmm. I'm a veteran. I can call myself that, right? Struggle doesn't announce on the first day what will happen. When those teachers decided on that day 4 weeks ago that they are going to come out on strike, if anybody had told them that a judge in Guyana would call a little piss-tail gentleman and say, come and sit in front of me, and let me tell you, do not disrespect the court, most of us will say, not in our Guyana. I am saying, brothers and sisters, struggle. Let the struggle take its course. Lincoln, old enough. Mark, you are old enough. Let the struggle take its course. You don't know what tomorrow will come. Just sometimes I think we try to direct the struggle. Just let the struggle be. What that's when I say? Slow fire, more fire, push fire, push fire, push fire. Mark Benschop, Rickford, Roysdale Ford's contention in relation to the no work, no pay concept.
You know, I take umbrage to the fact that just after you mentioned more fire, slow fire, you came directly to me. Note how these people take things, right? And for a moment, I thought you were talking to Ropes and Ben, because you know how these guys operate, so to speak, mind you.
And remember, there's no jurisdiction. They can charge you anywhere, even in Arizona.
But they're not going to try that on my Sabbath, though. Sorry about that, Mr. Burke. Whatever, I agree with Rickford, but whatever is done in the right, whatever is done legally, whatever is done by the Constitution, I don't think, maybe you guys have got to the point to understand that it doesn't matter to the PPP regime. This is a corrupt, this is an illegal, this is a regime that is in office under fraudulent circumstances. And so they have absolutely total disregard, for the rule of law, for the Constitution, for anything that is right. And for us to sit here and expect them to do anything that is right, it's not going to happen. And so by the virtue of our Constitution and the labor law, they are not to go after teachers who are striking. It is their constitutional right to do that. And now for them to basically go after the teacher, we are seeing that it is vindictive. It is a vindictive act on the part of this corrupt regime. Now, before I step aside and allow our veteran trade unionists to deal with this question, I'd like to pose this here. They have never, as far as I'm aware, they have never gone after GAU members, sugar workers when they are on strike, to go and penalize them in any way, shape, or form. I cannot recall that happening. I know, David, you and I and others and Lincoln, we have been on the ground with the sugar workers and so forth. But the PPP always swiftly come to a resolution. Why is it that they cannot reciprocate with the Guyana Teachers Union? Why? And so they've got to pay the teachers. They've got to stop with their vindictive action, and they've got to sting the judge. You mentioned that, thank God, the judge. We're seeing a few judges in our judicial system who are brave enough. I was going to say something else, but who are brave enough to stand up and confront this corrupt PPP regime on the issue of rule of law, the Constitution, and what is right. Thanks to Justice Kissoon, we need more justices like that who are brave enough, and not those who are being controlled by this corrupt PPP regime.
By this corrupt PPP regime. And the answer to your question, why treat GAU a certain way and why treat the teachers union a certain way, there is a term that you know very well that's called apart. You're treating them apart, and after apart comes what? Side.
You know, Dr. Hines. You know, Dr. Hines. The next time you have your good friend on, Donald Ramatar, ask him that. He was a director. Ask him that very question. Why my friend, man?
Why you coming between me and my friend? My friend is.
By the way, Donald, ask him why is it that they're not calling for the PPP books, the General Secretary, to call for an audit while Barrett sat there since 2016 as the General Secretary of the party with no elections. Those are things that are important, not the books of DT.
My friend, Comrade Ramatar, is no longer an active member in the leadership of the party, and but I will ask him in his private capacity, and I'll tell him, Mark Benschop, tell me to ask him. Lincoln Lewis, I don't know it'll be peeping my program and see the kind of friends, the kind of company I keep in.
You're the one who said Donald is my friend. Allow me to call you after I address you as Mr. President. Allow me to call you Donald. Come on.
But is Lincoln friend too? You abusing me because me friend is Lincoln friend too.
No,
Lincoln Lewis.
I wouldn't do that.
Lincoln.
Let me.
Lincoln, no, don't let me. I want to let you. I want you to respond to two things. The principle of no work, no pay, as explained by esteemed senior counsel Roysdale Ford. That's one. And two, I know you are a man don't like to talk straight on certain things, but Roysdale let the cat out of the bag yesterday on this program. He said he is moving to the court on behalf of the TUC. So I want you to clarify for us, is the TUC about to take some action? Because you know you got a lot of abusing for dancing wrong. That question last week, right? So Roysdale question of no work, no pay. And what is this thing we are hearing that the TUC is about to take some action?
Let me first of all say that remind you that you were talking, let the struggle continues. Let me tell you what. The longer there are things that this nation was not aware of, that we are conscious of now.
Yes.
The resolve of the largest union in this country. Let me tell you something, that the largest union, don't worry all them who running around, the largest bargaining unit you have in this country is represented by the Guyana Teachers Union. There's no other one that has that volume. This union operates in every region and every community in this country. Think of it. It's the largest and the strongest. This union stand out, and they never thought that this union that they would have stand up and fight them as they were fighting. I want to publicly commend the president, the general secretary, and all the officers or the members of the Guyana Teachers Union. But let me tell you what, listen to this. This proposal that was sent to the government of Guyana, it was sent in 2020. You calculate this, how much years now? We are in 4 years now, or 4 years since this thing was sent. No negotiation in all my experience. I've never seen a negotiation like this. And you're telling me, I never seen a collective labor agreement take so long to negotiate. And they have not had 3 sessions on the table. Right? You know what the government did? When the union called the strike after 3+ years, the union called the strike. They called the strike for collective bargaining. What the government did, they constructively created the atmosphere for workers to strike. Yeah, they constructively created the atmosphere for workers to strike. And then to turn back and say they're going to pay them. They didn't plan to go get to strike. They didn't plan to go off the job. You set the conditions and you put them off the job. As such, you must pay.
That's right. That's right.
And let me tell you something. The TUC, this area is a serious matter. It impacts the well-being of every trade union and every worker in this country, right? And it is for that reason we have decided, after consultation with the Guyana Teachers Union, that we are going to join in the court battle on this year. Right?
You heard it here on this program. You heard it last night. It was teased by Roysdale Ford that on behalf of the Guyana Trade Union Congress, they're moving to the court. I deliberately did not press Roysdale on it yesterday because I knew I was going to have my friend, comrade, and brother, veteran trade union on tonight. And the last time he was here, and I asked him some straight question, he did a little West Bobby's dance, and a lot of you all call and send a lot of text message and voice note to me, abusing out Lincoln, so Lincoln dancing the merengue. And tonight...
Well, I want to tell you something, David. The questions, there are some things I'm going to come here to speak about.
Yes.
You know why in the US, just going every country that they go for a war and they just left in there, in the model, and then they got put out in jail? Because they like talking before what they're going to do. So the people who are the enemies putting roadblocks for them. Yes. I am not going to come here to talk about what the next plans are.
But you have said,
but I'm telling you
that you all
tonight yes.
You all are going to join.
Because
last night I was listening to a program by a friend whose name I shall not mention. All right. And he was going off on Mr. Yard. And he was calling on Mr. Yard to come out of his yard and move beyond an ultimatum. I shall not call that friend's name because I don't even want the friend to know. I just watch the program. Any update, Lincoln, on the GPSU ultimatum?
I understand from the GPSU that they started some mobilization. That's the last position I've got from them. And I will wish to, any other thing that we can do is to, I am going to talk with them tomorrow to see where they are, and if possible, ask them to give some information or some clarity to the wider society through the public media.
I have a question. I know it's Dr. Hines' program, but I have a question for my friend Lincoln. And a lot of people are concerned about this here, that they feel that the Guyana Public Service Union is playing somewhat of a game with them. This ultimatum is probably a bluff. Is Mr. Patrick Yard serious about joining this strike?
I've said to you that what I will do, I will speak to the Public Service Union tomorrow, and I will not only speak to them, I will ask them to give the clarifications to public medium like this, what we have here today. If they can give you the information, Mark, give David the information, somebody who they can talk. I believe the opportunity should be given to them. Why not tomorrow, David?
Yes.
You invite the president of the PSU to come on your program.
I will talk to you off air so that we can make that arrangement. I'll be more than happy to entertain Brother Yard. I remember him when he was a young man. He and I did a course at TUC on public speaking, and you will remember a man called Melville, who was an old trade unionist, did that class public speaking. And Patrick Yard and myself, you're talking here about Lincoln, you're talking here about 40, 45, 46 years ago. So I know Patrick when he was a little boy, like me, right? And then of course, but please, if Patrick Yard can come on to our programs and to speak directly to our audience, we'll be more than grateful.
But before you move on to your next question, Dr. Hines, since you invited me,
who's the moderator of this program, Dr. Hines?
I'm the moderator, but Mr. Mark Benschop, he has the keys to the program tonight, so he is co-moderating.
Thank you. Lincoln, since the GPSU has issued this ultimatum days ago, what is your take of this? Because it's unusual for an ultimatum to be made and then nothing thereafter. How frustrating is that?
There can be reasons, why you give ultimatum. You give ultimatum because it can be that your grievance procedure, avoidance and settlement of dispute process, that in itself requires you give an ultimatum, or the law for itself require you to give ultimatum, like the way you call the Essential Services Act, like where like the teachers, the electricity people who are under that, you give ultimatum for that. But you can give an ultimatum also because you will like to make sure that you have a period where you can do the necessary work, that when you call for the people to come out, is not 10% coming out, but you can get a 60, 70, or 80%. That's the reasons why.
Comrades, we are joined by
tomorrow night.
We are joined by Apostle London. Let's give him a chance. Apostle London, your views on the developments today vis-a-vis the CEO of the Ministry of Education and the actions of the judge.
Dr. Hines, I have another appointment, so I'll depart now.
I know you have to go, and I have to go in a couple of minutes too. As you notice, I changed my costume because I have another program beginning in 2 or 3 minutes. So go ahead.
Okay, gentlemen.
Thanks, Rickford. Right.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Pastor.
My apologies, but I'm actually in another meeting. I left it to be here and then to head right back. But I must say that I'm certainly pleased to know that the Justice Kissoon yet again has acted in a manner that's responsible and gives some breath of fresh air to the judicial system of our country. On the other hand, I'm highly disappointed in the actions of the Chief Education Officer, because for me, I recognize behavior is quite, I should say, in sync with the PPP. So he's not be operating in a manner that mirrors the nature of the PPP. You disregard law just and think you get away with it. I would also like to say that I'm highly encouraged by the continued stance of our teachers, and I think that today would have given them some impetus, greater strength to continue to stand, knowing that here we have the legal system supporting their position and proving that nobody's above it in this regard. So I'm really, really encouraged by that. I look forward to what tomorrow holds. I look forward to seeing what the responsible teachers would be like, because or the energy would be like, since I know today They've been reminded of the strength that they possess. What I can say for this is that I'm a bit disappointed that the judge didn't find time to put him in prison for about a month or two.
He will never, I'll tell you something, even if he get prison time, between them and the police, they will collude for him to stay home rather than remain in the prison.
Apostle Mark Benschop had said 2 months. How much you say?
About 2 or 3.
Yeah, well, you and Benschop agree here. Benschop
We Lyndon like so.
that he should be in there for 2 months. Brothers, as I said, I have to run to another program. And so my apologies for cutting the program here. But I think this is a very important development. As we say, you have to put the struggle in train. Let the struggle be. And you don't know what will happen tomorrow. Because you are coming up against another side. And that side is deciding going to play hardball. And if they're going to play hardball, there are consequences to actions. And you will either bring out the worst in our country, God forbid, or you bring out the best in us. Today, the teacher struggle brought out the best in us. We saw an officer of the court standing up for the Constitution, standing up for the rule of law, and for the first time in a long time, we see our court playing its role of judicial review of the actions of a co-equal branch of government. I think we all should be proud of what happened today. We don't know where this will go, but as Desmond Hoyt said, slow fire, more fire. And the more we continue to push for our rights to be restored, the more we will put under pressure those who are in government. I want to thank you all so much for coming on tonight. And Lincoln, I will call you for us to talk about trying to get the PSU people onto Politics 101 and Straight Up with Brother Mark Benschop. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Dr. Hanks. Thanks.
And thank you all so much. You know, I don't scamper away, but like I said, I gave a commitment to be on another program tonight. And so I am rushing on over there. It's in hostile territory, but, you know, we are fighters. So we are going to make the best of the situation there. Thank you all very much. And I'll see you all tomorrow when we come back with another edition, another bumper edition of Politics 101.